Assalamu alaikum. So, as much as Haya means having a sense of consideration that is driven by love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the presence of the angels, this idea that you have to always be uncomfortable is not necessarily part of Haya. So just because you're okay with talking to the sisters and you have a sense of comfort dealing with them, that's not bad or wrong in and of itself. If you feel comfortable looking at them in the wrong way, then that becomes a problem, right? So you can look at someone and it's like looking into the face of your sister, looking into the face of, a cashier at a grocery store. It's a casual, normal interaction, and that's fine. It's a comfortable interaction, and that's fine. But then there's a different look, and that's actually in the Quran when it says to lower your gaze. It doesn't just say lower your gaze. It says the word that's used is min, so it's lower from your gaze. And the scholars say that this refers to this indicates that all of the gaze is not prohibited, just a specific part, which is to look at someone in an inappropriate manner, or to look at something that is forbidden to look at in the first place. So if the sisters you're dealing with, you're looking at them while you're talking to them, but again, you're not doing so with that particular, lustful look, then that should be fine, inshallah. But some of the scholars have also mentioned that it's good to lower your gaze, not like preemptively. So even if you're not attracted to the sister, even if her aura is covered, doesn't mean you have tunnel vision, which is what I see a lot of people trying to do and what I used to do myself. Actually, when my husband and I were interacting in the MSA, when I was in college, nobody knew we were talking to each other because of how far we stood and how we were looking in opposite directions. It was the most awkward thing on earth, and that is not what Islam is like. So literally in passing period, people would walk through us because they didn't know that we were having a conversation. That's how distant we were and how awkward we were, not even facing each other to deal with MSA things. So that's not necessarily like the paradigm we're trying, that's not healthy, right? And you can only imagine how problematic that is for someone that you're trying to introduce Islam to in terms of the greater community and society that you're in. So this is my advice, is it's okay to be comfortable, but it's to guard yourself from getting too comfortable, not just in like to the extent that you would start to look at them in the wrong way, but also in speech. That's actually, I think, where more people would mess up initially, is you get comfortable, so then you start talking about like all sorts of different things, and people get into their personal lives and like matters that really have nothing to do with MSA. And so just, having a formal friendship, the way that you would maybe deal with people at a company, right? If you go to work, it's considered like it's considered like not good work ethic or work manners to talk about your personal life, for example, at work. So just keeping some of these things in mind, where you don't get so comfortable where your speech can take you to places that it shouldn't take you. And it's a slippery slope, so when you start to see, certain areas open up too easily, then that's kind of where you pull yourself back. A nice indication that one of the scholars mentioned about our overall place with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this is where hayat comes from, is when we are making mistakes in the way we deal with the creation of Allah and in the way that we're dealing with Allah Himself, we actually start to see prayer and worship as being more difficult. But when we're dealing with the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really from a paradigm of loving Allah and being considerate for His creation, then we yearn to worship. We love to pray. We love to go to prayer. So a good sort of overall measurement of like, is the way I'm dealing with people okay, is, well, do I want to worship my Lord? Do I love the idea that it's time to pray? Or is it something I'm turning away from? Or I feel like it's heavy right now. If it's heavy, then maybe there's something in our behavior that lacks dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu a'lam.
Jazakallahu khairan. Oh, okay, let's move on to the next question then. I own a daycare. I try not to shake hands with men, but when parents come to interview, I can't say no, I don't shake hands. What's Islamic law regarding men and women shaking hands?
There's two opinions. It's one of those issues where there's two opinions. There's the opinion that says you can't do it. There's the opinion that says you can. You can find it online, actually, in the article that I just was using. It's called 10 Principles for Gender Relations. The part that says no touching actually has a link where you can read the opinion which allows shaking hands under certain circumstances. It's on virtualmosque.com. Just search 10 Principles for Gender Relations, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.
When you're in the prayer room at the university and there's only one guy there, what do I do as a girl?
So I think it really depends on the space. We have a prayer room at USC. where I'm a chaplain at, and in this prayer room, the walls of it are glass, and it's in a building with other religious spaces. So you walk past the MSA prayer room, then there's like another office, and there's other religions that have spaces there, and they have a divider, so and it's side to side. So if there's only one brother there praying, and a sister goes in to pray, technically it's not wrong. And it's not haram, it's actually not even awkward because of the way that the prayer space is. It's not like this secluded thing in like the corner of the campus. It's a place that's really public. So people can, again, the door is open, the walls are made of glass, anyone can see through it. So it really just depends on the space itself. I would need a little bit more detail to give you a better encouragement or discouragement. Wallahu alam.
If guys from your community are following you on social media, how does Haya apply to what we post/say, since we know they may see it?
Okay, so social media is actually a place where I am more shocked about the lack of Haya than real life, because I feel like in real life people can make a mistake by accident. They're in the middle of a conversation and they accidentally just they're a little bit inconsiderate or something in what they say or do, and it's a mistake, but on social media you have to like deliberately post it and plan to leave it there. And when you leave a comment, and there's different ways that people flirt now online. Flirting has become so easy. Like a sister will post a nice picture, and a brother who doesn't have the courage to go and talk to his family and say, I'm interested in the sister for marriage, all he'll do is go and like the picture, right? And then the sister will see the like and be like, I wonder what that means, And it's just this, and it's so silly because by the way, all you young people, we're watching. When you guys peacock, we can see it. And it's funny. It's really, it's like, yeah, peacocking is a very interesting phenomenon because we've been your age before. We went to college also. We went through those experiences. And so we're not blaming you or anything. It makes me smile sometimes because it's like, my mom has a saying, she would say, you're not the only person who was ever young, So sometimes when our parents are encouraging us, in this particular case, I would say when we're posting things, and in general, again, advice, think about the presence of the angels and think about, if the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was on Facebook and he was following my page, would I post this? This is something to think about. If I really love the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and I, have haiba for him, would I do this in his presence? That would be my indicator. Just a couple things I wanted to mention is, where did the hand on the hip sideways picture come from? I don't know where it came from. I just all of a sudden it started happening and everyone was doing it. And this phenomenon, and I'm not if you're one of the sisters who did that, I'm not trying to hate on you, but I'm just wondering where. And if an audience member can, because I just don't know. Did it come from Hollywood? Did it come from a show on TV? What did it? Anyways. One thing, subhanAllah, I want to add to this really important quality is our concept of being real with yourself. Is our nafs is designed, our lower nafs is designed to hide our issues from us. So it is you actually, if you're sensitive, one of the ways that you can find out that you are having a problem with something is if you see it actually in someone else. If you see a sister on social media that you think is being too flirtatious and it really bothers you, you probably have a little bit of that actually inside. So you have to and this actually helps us with not being judgmental, because the fact that you noticed it and it stung when you noticed it, it's as our teachers have taught us, this is something that indicates you have some of that ignorance inside as well, even if it's 1% of it, even if it's maybe 10% of it, but your nafs has hidden it from you. So it's kind of I don't know if you've ever had a huge library and you put a book somewhere and then you try to go back and find the book and you can't find it. You actually have to go searching because it's there. It's in there, but you have to go searching. You have to go opening up places and being where did I hide this flaw from myself? Because it does exist, and it's okay to have flaws. Just something to add to this whole discussion really is I find a lot of young people fall into self-hate when they make mistakes. Self-loathing and self-hate, and they're trying to be sincere and they're trying to be humble, and it's no. Even the reason why I laugh when I see these shortcomings and stuff with young people is because we dislike actions, but we don't dislike the essences of people. We don't dislike the idea of hate the sin, not the sinner. Well, we have to apply that to ourselves. And self-hate, I'm going to say something, I hope it blows your minds a little bit. Self-hate essentially comes from arrogance. What? How did self-hate come from arrogance? Because there's this perception deep down that you have to be perfect, and that you are perfect, and that you did something that is below perfection, so then you hate yourself. And only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect. So accept yourself as being imperfect. All of us are going to be imperfect. All of us are going to make mistakes. And when we make those fall into certain shortcomings, take it in stride, laugh at yourself. Seriously, be like, oh my God, I did that, But the point is not to get stuck there. The point is to grow and get better, And yeah, we feel regret in the beginning, but don't hate yourself. And you do not have to be perfect, and you were not created to be perfect. And if you did not sin, Allah would have replaced all of us. If all of us didn't sin, we would have been replaced with people who did sin. So we were meant to be in this human condition, and we need to embrace that flawed, alhamdulillah, beautifully flawed human condition, and know that we can make mistakes, and it shouldn't be a reason for self-loathing, self-hate, and sincerity and humility is found in just turning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu a'lam.